Hello, beautiful ones. My name is Emily Potter, and I had a very life-changing moment last week when I listened to the Ancestral Healing Summit. And one of the speakers was someone named Erica Woodland, who identifies as a he. And I had this ceremony come from that. It was inspired from listening to him. So I'm going to share with you what the ceremony is based on what he said in his talk. He said that there's no amount of healing that's going to happen in regards to healing and bringing in racial harmony and harmony towards all genders unless we heal that belief, that white supremacy belief, that white privilege belief in our ancestral line. We can do all of the work in the world for ourselves to be clear of racism and prejudice of all different kinds, but it is still in the DNA that was handed down by our white grandfathers and grandmothers and great grandmothers and grandfathers. And I listened to that, and the part of me who does ancestral healing work just lit up inside, because that is something that I know how to do. I know how to connect with the angels and connect with the ancestors. And it is my opportunity, and I have taken a stand and raising my voice and raising my hand and saying, yes, I will do ancestral healing work in general for my family line. So when he said that, he then ended his presentation by saying, if there's anything you feel inspired to do, do it. So pretty much immediately, I put together a ceremony. Now, I didn't lead or guide this ceremony. I just was in complete trust and surrender. And then I reached out to a few select friends of white descent and said, this is what I'm doing for my ancestral line, and you're invited. If you'd like to invite your ancestors to be part of this ceremony, I'm going to put this together for my own line first, and then I'm going to just share my experience and share what the ceremony looks like if you'd like to participate and invite your ancestors to take part in giving up that piece of white privilege and white supremacy mind belief that was never ours to have, but it was the way it was when our ancestors were on the planet. So a couple friends did say, yes, I do feel called to that. And in my world, that means that their ancestors are ready to partake in this ceremony. So I'm sharing all of this, and I'm going to be giving you the details of the ceremony here if you also feel called to participate in this, so that you can also clear white supremacy, prejudice towards genders and the way that gender's supposed to look, clearing those things as much as we possibly can in the space of a healing moment. And I have a whole document here that I'm going to read through so that I'm very thorough. So here we go. I first want to say that this ceremony does not replace our responsibility for owning and addressing our own racism. So do your work on that, your phobias, your fears, your ignorance, my racism. This doesn't try to replace that or excuse that. And that's just my little caveat at the beginning. I also make full disclaimer that this is not all inclusive, okay? This is just a part of the work if you feel called to it. What I want to share with that too is there's no amount of proving how racist we aren't that's going to really heal anything. So the only way to actually heal is to just simply be different and do that consistently. So that's what this ceremony is. It's the being different ceremony for ourselves and for our ancestors. And this is why this is a powerful ceremony, is because we're going to be engaging in in regular acts of being. Some action steps that look like it's just regular life is part of the ceremony, but you're being different in a more mindful way. And it's in a very proactive, conscious way of being different and doing that on a consistent basis. This is addressing that the way it was is not tolerated anymore, just because that's the way it was in our ancestral time and era. Being white and being straight was the way it's supposed to be, and that is absolutely unacceptable. So we're going to bring in the space of being different than that way of being, and dedicating that to the ancestral times. Basically, we're going to be time traveling back and being different in those eras. And so if anyone's new to ancestral work, you get to know that there's certain amounts of healing that can only be done when we are in our visceral bodies on the actual planet and anchoring that down here. So as much as our ancestors can do lots of work for their own soul's evolution, wherever they are, they understand, and we get to understand, that there's significant power of doing that here in the place where the action happened. So our mindfulness and our consciousness being shifted and our participation in this is very, very powerful, because you're the one in your physical body. You're the one with the voice. You're the one with the mindfulness and part of the collective consciousness right here and now. Okay, so then I also want to acknowledge that this ceremony doesn't address other prejudices that are happening. It's going to be significantly tuned in to prejudices with race and gender, but it does not address other prejudices, for example, towards women and toward people with all different kinds of physical abilities. That's all I can say about that, is that the work continues. So there's lots of other ceremonies, and you can apply the same ceremony to those, that important work as well. So let's begin. This is a couple of things to say in preparation in advance before your ceremony begins. The first is to get a bouquet of mixed flowers. So here are the ones that I had for mine. It's important to have a variety, because that's exactly what we're celebrating, is the variety of who we are as individuals, as humans. And it's just so gorgeous to see such brilliant colors and vibrance and textures of every flower. So in preparation for the ceremony, get a mixed bouquet of flowers. And also you'll want a place that you can lie down at some point. You also would like, it's important to have a bath or a shower available for this. And then also the groceries already bought and placed in your home to be able to make a meal. Now, it's going to be even more significant if you choose to prepare in advance what meal it's going to be. And very significantly, you could create a meal that your ancestors would have partaken. And so you're going to be, it's as if you're sitting at the table eating with them. You're going to time travel back as much as you possibly can, recreate that. So definitely refrain from any kind of processed food, because you're going to be going back in time to a place that there's a lot of just nurturing, very wholesome, natural foods. And as naturally as you can get your groceries to be. So imagine yourself being on a farm, or being somewhere where, and we're talking ancestors, not just grandparents and great grandparents. We're talking down the line. You know, this has been a disease in our human consciousness for a very long time. So imagine yourself being on a farm, and what groceries, or I'm sorry, well, groceries, yes, but what foods would they have grown in that farm, on that farm? So prepare your meal as if you were going to be at that dinner table with those ancestors. All right, so this is a really important part. I'm going to explain it too. Set a time period, create a time on the on the calendar the date and the time to do the ceremony, and allow at least 6 hours for this to be taken, the ceremony. Now, I was instructed while I was doing this, while I was receiving this information and doing it and taking notes later, is that this is really an important part. The time of being is really, really important. In our current world, we like to just put our little energy work sessions into an hour and a half very often, and nothing's wrong with that. But what we're going to do is slow time down. Just once again, imagine you being with your ancestors on a farm, 1800s, and time has slowed down as you time travel back to that time. So you get to really prepare as if you are going to be in that time period. And once again, you're going to be taking the time to be different. So you do get to know how important this work is if you're here to do it. And being different and being mindful requires some time to do this in a way that can be very deep. So mine took about 6 hours to do. And let's see. Yeah, another thing to be reminded of is that you might even be jumping from decade to decade, generation to generation. So as you do the ceremony, you could start out in the 1800s and feel those memories coming up, or those thought patterns start to surface, and then you might jump into the 1900s, and then you might go from 1920 to 1950, and then you might go back to the 1700s, where you may not be consciously thinking about those exact years, but your way of being is being shot through time as a different way of being. So you get to have time be your co-collaborator, co-creator with this work. And it does take time because it gets to go back many, many generations if you choose it to be. All right. So then another way to prepare for this is to eat very wholesomely and very naturally for at least 2 to 3 days before you begin. And that just helps your body to prepare. So you're thinking, you're being conscious, you're really dedicating the time, anticipating the actual ceremony. So 2 to 3 days beforehand, you're eating very, very naturally and choosing those meals. And then in that 2 to 3 day time period, start to invite your ancestors who are interested in participating to start to gather. And so you're going to have this huge reunion of open-minded ancestors who are ready to do this work start to gather, and you might start to have miracles and experiences happen, and synchronicities happen in those 2 to 3 days before the ceremony itself. So this is something you definitely want to put on your calendar and plan for, and maybe set aside other things so that you're not feeling called to do other things. This is your work for for that week that you decide to do it. All right. One thing that happened for me is that I set my time and my date on the calendar, and then right at the time I was in a very annoyed mood. I was pretty irritable, and what's interesting is I wanted to postpone. And so I didn't have anybody giving me a video about all of this. I just was like, oh, I don't want to do this right now. And I don't even know why. I'm just kind of annoyed. And I want to share with you that this kind of work doesn't require you to be in this really high vibe place to start. And I say that because we're not interested in just your current mood as the most important thing. We're interested in what is authentic. So if things are starting to rumble and you're getting in a place of like, I don't even want to do this anymore, continue on, push through that just a bit, because I'll tell you, that's exactly what I did, and extremely worth it. So I share that because I feel like in the energy work, healing work world, we feel like we have to be in this Zen place to do any kind of healing work. And that is erroneous in my experience. So allow yourself to have your feelings authentically and say, no, the time and the date is now, and my ancestors have gathered for this moment. And no matter how I'm feeling, I have set aside this time, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm just gonna show up as a real person right here. So that's most significant. Okay. So then when you're ready, your time and your date on the calendar, everything's prepared. You have your fresh flowers, you have your groceries. You haven't prepared anything yet, but you have them ready in the kitchen, and you have your place to lie down at some point ready. You have access to a shower or a bath, and you are ready. So you begin your ceremony by just welcoming the ancestors that are ready to do this work. And you can say and do anything you want and you feel inspired to do. One of the important parts about this I failed to mention is that you also want to turn off your Wi-Fi, turn off your devices, turn off any lamps or any electronics in the room. Unplug things. So you're as natural setting as if you were time traveling back as possible. So use only sunlight or lamp light, candles, lamp light being like an oil lamp if you have that, or candlelight, something very natural in that way. And once again, you're going back into that authenticity of acting as if you were with them and being with them. So you're bringing in that welcome spirit, welcome all ancestors. And I just got the message just now. You may decide to do this with someone else, and that is appropriate after you do it for yourself first. So it's the first message I received also. I was going to gather lots of us together. I was going to get a whole event. I even created an event on social media. And then my ancestors in the middle of the night woke me up and said, go take it down. Yes, we want you to share this with others, but you've got to focus on yourself and your ancestors of your line first. So I say that because they just wanted me to tell you now that you might be impressed to do this with other people, and that's fully welcome, but just not the first time around. Because the more you heal within yourself, the more room you have to hold space for other people who are doing it as well. But you've got to do your own work first. All right, so start the ceremony. This is how it began for me. And please know that this is only to give you a guide, but your ceremony may be completely different than this. This is just to give you an offering of a guide, and your heart trumps all. It supersedes everything I say. I began with a 10 to 15 minute meditation, and I allowed myself then to just do nothing but listen. Can you only imagine the power of how the history of the world would be different if that was really all we did, is just listen to one another and attempt to understand one another? So I just sat and listened. And I don't know how long I did that, but I gave it the time it needed. So after that happened, you may not have anything extraordinary happen, but you're ready to be of the listening space. That's an important part. Then now becomes the very, very innocent and loving and mindful way of being different. You are about to go do regular acts of life as if you were your ancestors. But the difference is the way you think. And you don't have to focus. This is actually quite imperative to say. You don't have to focus on the theme of bringing in racial harmony and harmony for all genders. In fact, see yourself as innocently as a little child. They're not thinking about that at all. They're thinking about love. They're thinking about play. They're thinking about fun. And they're just being innocent. So that's the power here. You're going to be doing acts as if you were your ancestors, but once in a while, you're going to bring in that mindfulness of why you're doing this. So here's what I did. I then, in that mindful way, started to just clean the room that I was in. Not deep cleaning. It's pretty much a ritual cleaning. Whatever I did, I was straightening things up. I was sweeping a little bit and being different. Then I made a natural, wholesome, yummy meal. And it was a meal that my ancestors would have eaten. I actually made potato pancakes, which is what they eat in Ireland. And my ancestors came from mostly from Ireland, England, um, Wales, Sweden, Denmark. In any case, I did some potato pancakes and I did some other things too, but that was really fun. And I got to hear my ancestors' delight in that I was enjoying them, and they were just beaming with pride. Like, this is our descendant making something that we ate and that we enjoyed. And we then ate together. And great. So I did that. And then I allowed myself to just read. You'd almost feel like you're not doing a ceremony, which is quite perfect. The power of being in that place of innocence is so starkly different than trying to put all your attention and your energetic particle flow towards attempting to be different, and then you're giving all of that attention to this thing. There's a time and place to do that, but this one, I'm going to emphasize, you are simply being different. I hope I'm saying that enough so that it's really sinking in. So I read for about 10 to 15 minutes in ceremony. I read quietly. And then here's an important part. The reason why you want a place to sit down or lay down is because you're going to then take a nap. The nap is part of the ceremony because you're going to intend to astral project out of your body and go wherever is most useful. If astral projection is something that's new for you, you can look it up or talk to someone or learn more about it as you desire. But just to let you know that most people do astral project already for all different reasons during sleep, and you do it safely all the time. This one, you basically just have an intention before you take your nap. And that's why you also want to have all these hours, because one of the hours could be just sleeping and taking your nap with the intention of meeting up with anyone who would like to offer you a message. Whether you remember it or not is also very irrelevant, but you are being of service outside of your body, getting the gathered information or the gathered healing or the listening space that is necessary, and then you're ready to then bring it back when you wake up and anchor that into this body, into this world. And you may never see the correlation of what you did during the ceremony, the ceremonial nap, and then all of a sudden in this life you see yourself feeling inspired to do this or that or the other. You may not know the correlation, but you have intended to be of service so that you are ready to take any actions that might come up during that nap. Okay? So then you're invited to then wake up slowly, and this is also where your flowers come in. Put your flowers near you when you go to sleep so that when you wake up, it's just you laying softly and innocently, opening your eyes and looking at the flowers. And let yourself do that for as long as you want. Study them. I had them on the table next to the couch where I took my nap, and I just looked at them, the textures. I appreciated all of the different colors of every single petal, and how absolutely outrageously beautiful they were, and remarkable of their genetic structure. I mean, I probably didn't get to all those details, but the sunlight was coming through the window, and I got to just appreciate the variety and the diversity of this bouquet of flowers. And I'll tell you, that itself was such a fulfilling meditation. So just lying softly and peacefully, looking at the flowers is part of this very important part of the ceremony. Then another part is actually something that's going to be new for a lot of people. Then do nothing for a significant amount of time. Imagine yourself sitting on the porch with some ancestors. You can imagine, I'm saying not actually to do that, but I'm saying imagine if you were. There's no more work to be done that day, and everyone's fed in the house, and it's not time to go to sleep yet, and you're just sitting on the porch with some family members, and you're just being different. You're being in that space of love. You're not trying. You don't have to try. You don't have to worry about if you're being politically correct, or and I'm saying that in this respect of, you're just like a child, an innocent child who's ready to just love everyone and do nothing for a little bit of time. It could be a few minutes, it could be whatever you'd like, but doing nothing was very, very powerful part of this as well. The sun's going down, so my light's almost done. I might have to pause this for a second so that, I think I will. I'll be right back. All right. The last part of the ceremony is to take your ritual bath or your ritual shower, because all of this energy has been gathering from the astral projection, from the being different, the surfaced feelings that might have come up, any kind of vision, all of it is right here, and there's electrical charges on all of it. And most likely you are being given things to clear from ancestors who are ready to offer that to be completely cleaned out with your offer of giving this healing ceremony. So whether you know it or are aware of it or not, there's a lot of this energy on you now from centuries of ancestors who might have been present for this. And truthfully, I'm talking centuries of ancestors could be showing up for you, because what's been going on the planet right now significantly has affected our ancestral line as well. Anyone who is on a soul evolutionary journey is interested in taking part of what's going on right now. And that means from this side of the veil and the other side of the veil. So if they're showing up with you, they're ready to just be different. They're interested in changing the way it was during their time. They don't want to stay stuck in these old thoughts and these old ways of being, just because that's the way that it was in societal norms back then. So in any case, they're saying thank you to you. Thank you for taking this on. And luckily, we don't have to take it on. We can just hold it for a moment, and then you can take your ritual bath, your ritual shower, and in that intention, you are clearing that and cleansing that off of you with that symbol of the water cleansing you. So I want to give you a couple details of what a ritual bath could look like. You're going to make this your own, as you remember. But what mine looked like is I took a sage stick and I smudged the whole bathroom, and I sang a little song while I did that. So the incense was going all throughout the corners of the bathroom and the bath area. And then I lit some candles in there, and I brought in a singing bowl, and I held it out and I just rang it all throughout the bathroom. So I had the beautiful tone and the echo of the acoustics, and I rang that bell everywhere. And then the flower petals, one flower petal from each flower, just a tiny little bit like that. I mean, you can do as much as you want, but one flower petal from each one to represent our diversity of all the kinds of human beings we have on the planet. I brought them into the bath and they were all welcome to just float around me. So then I offered the water, and then there I was in the bath for a while. So that is the end of the official ceremony. I'm going to share a couple afterward thoughts of what happened for me. So make that your own for sure. And yeah, then you close it however you'd like, thanking those ancestors to come in and welcoming them to come back at any time if there's more work to be done. So there you go, however you'd like. Okay, so afterwards, give yourself permission to not have to feel any different. Once again, we're going into that place of innocence as if you were a child and you love everyone. You are kind to everyone. You're hugging everyone. And so I wrote here, just know, you can just trust that the work is going deep into the bloodline. So that can look any way it does for you, because who knows what karmic dealings you have in your family as I do within mine. One thing that happened that you get to know about is that the next day I was exhausted. I had to take a couple naps, I believe, or at least lay down for a while. And then I also felt anger and I felt very emotional. And I thought it was just stuff in my own life, but I started to there was a correlation. I thought, okay, there's stuff being released like crazy. So be mindful of that as you choose what week you're going to do this. Don't think that the next day you're going to be fine and ready to go again. You really may want to have it be a slow day on the next day as well. And just be mindful that this is now, it might take some time for this to really go and make a difference in your ancestral line, and how that might show up with you in your life and your family. We don't know, because once again, we still have our own work to do with the way we see the world and the prejudices and the racism and the biases that we have. But this is going to affect your perception very, very positively. All right. Oh, and I just want to say again, like, you have to know that this could be affecting centuries of people. So in my world, I'll share this in a second. I only got to see one story of how it affected one of my ancestors, and I'm going to share a little bit of their story with you. But you might have a direction to go into one person's experience and helping heal them. It might continue on, and I'm saying that because this is a very general ceremony for a very general purpose of having the collective consciousness be different. But there might be deeper work that you have to do with specific ancestors. Okay. And then I said, I want you to imagine that what this ceremony is like comparative to if you were on a balcony in a village and there were thousands, a huge crowd of people in the village square listening to you, and you're giving a message, and you're affecting their lives. So they're looking at you, but you might hear one or two raise their voice, or they may not. So, but your words are still or your actions are still affecting the whole throng, the whole crowd. Okay. In the ceremony, I did see one woman wearing pioneer clothes. I have been given permission to share this, because at first I thought, oh, I don't want to share this because this is way too personal, but I have been given permission to share this, which I'm very grateful for. This woman was showing me a vision. This is when I was in the bath and I had my eyes closed. This white woman was giving me a vision of her in pioneer clothes, and it was cold and it was winter, and she was kneeling down in the snow, and she was crying. And she then shared with me, actually, it wasn't really sharing it with me. She was just giving me an insight and a window into what happened. So I was kind of far away watching her. And I got to see in her mind's eye what happened. There was a little boy who had dark skin. And at the time, she did not feel safe in, she was very racist because it was the way it was. So what happened was there was the snow and it was freezing cold, and because she was afraid, there was a little boy that she allowed to die in the cold instead of bringing him into her warm cabin or home. And she regrets it. She has deep remorse. And so this ceremony was to be a place of grieving for her, that she felt so, so sad and so regretful of that choice. So that little boy died. So I'm still just watching this happen. And then a woman with dark skin comes up to her and kneels down and takes her hand, and she starts to smile. And the woman in the pioneer clothes looked up, and the other woman says to her, "That was me." And the pioneer woman said, "Oh, I thought that you were a little boy. I guess I got that wrong." And then the woman said, "No, I was." And I'm watching all this and I'm like, am I getting this right? And I did get it right. This ceremony is not just to bring in racial harmony, it's also to bring in harmony for all genders. So this little boy was a little boy and got to be who she truly is as a woman. And I don't know if this is something that happened where she got to be her true self after she died. I don't know. Or if that's something that happened in a life after. The details are not that important to know. The most important thing is that these two women stood up then, and there was such profound forgiveness, which also completely blows my mind that so much forgiveness is available. Blows my mind. So they hugged and they danced and they smiled, and there was such a deep, beautiful union between these two women. And I felt privileged that I got to see this wherever that happened, in whatever dimension and whatever ethers. This was an ancestor of mine that was able to have this moment of healing. And I got to know that it was because of the ceremony that I was offering. I can't give this isn't all the, I'm not giving myself all the credit for that. What I'm saying is I got to hold a space for that to happen, and the work that they had both done to be at that place it all came together in a collaborative effort. And then I got to have that being passed down into my cells, into my DNA, and the way I am and the way I get to be different now. And I want to say and emphasize that it doesn't matter how progressive you and I ever are, there are still so many layers that just by way of being white, we have to pay attention to. This is my message to myself. So I can only imagine all of the things that I am not aware of, even just telling you about this ceremony. I mean, even the fact that the ceremony is to go take a bath and to go take a nap. I mean, after all of the incredible hurt and torture and horrid details, I, as a white privileged woman, gets to just take a nap and take a bath and do healing work for all this. Believe me, it does not go unnoticed. Um, and I can make no claims for anything besides I am showing up and offering what I feel instructed to offer. And so everyone is available to give me their opinions if you'd like. I can just offer you what I have to offer in the spirit of the highest intentions that I have. So for healing to actually occur. All right. So one of the important things that my ancestors said is that the thing that I asked at the end of the ceremony, is there anyone who would like to speak? And one of the most profound messages is my ancestors said, we collectively, it wasn't like I heard one person, but kind of like one spokesperson for the whole, were saying, we're just so embarrassed that we just didn't think past the thought of this is just the way it is. This was just the way it is. And they didn't even think past that. And that's the one thing that we don't get the privilege to do. We have to think past, well, that's just the way it is. Like we don't get to have that. And anyone who wants to stay in that place, they're being shook up. And one of the greatest things I learned from Erica Woodland, who inspired this, is we have to, it was never ours. It was never ours. So who's willing to give up this thing that was never even ours? And I don't want to go into a lot of that right now. There's a lot of people speaking very, very powerfully about about what's going on right now. This is specifically for our ancestors. That's what the work I'm doing for this. But I want to share that that's one thing that they would call us to shift with what we can do with our voices now, is to just not allow just the way it is to be the way it is, just for the sake of not wanting to think about it. And that's something that they realize that isn't an excuse, but it's the way that they were. They want us to think for ourselves and think about, they want us to think for ourselves, like truly think. Okay. All right. One of the powerful things that I've learned with any ancestral healing work that I've done, especially recently, is that our magic, I'm someone who believes in magic, and I perform magic on a very regular basis and have magical experiences all the time. And yet I have not yet tapped into the depth of my own magic, because I haven't yet given the acknowledgement that my magic and your magic comes from the roots of who we are. Deep, deep magic can come from our ancestral line. So you can only imagine that that deep ancestral line is healed and seeing in the eyes of love how powerful you can live your dreams, and your dreams can come true, and you living your soul's purpose, contributing to humanity in a way that's actually positive and the highest good. If you can heal that, and you can, and you have that ability to do so, if you stand up and raise your voice in doing so, the profundity of your magic and the depth of your magic in having your dreams come true blesses all of us. And it's what our ancestors actually want, or at least the ones that are stepping forward to be part of this work. So your dreams, it's motivating to do this work, because your dreams then have this deep, deep magic as part of its roots to coming forth, and it can have substance for not just having a lovely dream come true, but also to be of deep, profound service to the whole of humanity. I'm interested in that game. I feel like we are complete. Thank you so much for being part of this with me. Thank you for allowing the things that I didn't say to be okay, the things that I did say to be what they are, And I am very grateful for those who decide to do this work, as it does affect all of the collective consciousness. It'll come in ripples. It'll ripple across the world. And I want to share again that this is very subtle magic. So you get to see the difference between this and raising picket, picket around and taking a stand out in the streets. There is the necessity for both to happen. This one is that very subtle, quiet inner work that then, if it's in a dedicated, intentionalized space, can have ripples happen around the whole world and affect in ways that you may never be consciously aware of. But that's a place where my magic comes in the most. That's where I shine, is in that deeper way of affecting the collective consciousness. So it's a fine tuning that you can become more and more aware of what your influence is. And even if you're not, you don't have to be attached to ever seeing the results. You just get to walk differently in the world. I bless your journey. I bless you and your ancestors. And I will talk to you in the next video. Lots of love to you all.